Whew. Hey, good morning, everyone. Today is Monday. Just having my coffee before I start the day, like I usually do. I think most of you, I bet some of you have some sort of ritual when it comes to watching your fish, or when it comes to fish watching, aquarium watching. This is mine basically in the morning. It really calms me down before I go to work and tackle the day, and it's almost like therapy, like free therapy. So today I actually woke up to a really cold morning. So let's have a look at the temperature for those who are curious. And uh, today is 28 degrees below zero Celsius. And that is really cold, actually. So I do live in Canada, so it does get very cold. Now, the room temperature when I got in here is just about 21 degrees, 21.9. So it's actually more like 22 degrees if we round it up. And so what I did was I raised the thermostat a bit just to get the baseboard heaters to kick in, and I can just hear them right now. I can hear them working. So hopefully we get to around 23, 24 degrees, because that's what I set it to. But I mean, the fish seem to be doing okay. I just checked on them. I do love the addition of the hornwork to the new tank. I think it adds more character. Contrast the green with the brown. Um, I think that's a nice contrast, like earth tones, earth colors. And I finally found the male in there, but I'm just gonna keep him in there. So he is swimming around. I don't know where the female is at the moment, so I think she's just under the leaves. So let's just let them hang out for a bit and see what happens with them. The thing is with Betta embellus, the ones that I have in the tote right now for breeding, they actually don't need that big of a bubble nest. They're not really the greatest bubble nesters of all of their beta cousins. I would say the best one is Splendid. I've had a really, really big bubble nest from a beta Splendid. But a beta embellus will also create a large bubble nest. I've seen my embellus create some massive ones before, and that's just because they're happy in their environment, not really because they wanted to breed, because there was no really female around to display the bubble nest, to showcase it. So my guess is it's just good water quality and they're loving their environment. So but yeah, when it comes to breeding, they typically don't need that much bubbles in their nests. Like, they will breed with the female even if even if the bubble nest is smaller than them actually. So that's one thing that I keep in mind, that they could breed at any time because they don't really need a big bubble nest. So we'll see what this male does, if he does go that route, or if he does build a big bubble nest. Right now there's no bubble nest present. Like I said, they're just swimming around, not really displaying any breeding behavior. So in a bit we're gonna go ahead and feed them, and right now I'm just enjoying the coffee, just observing the tanks. Most of them are settled in, so these tanks are probably like 3 weeks from setup. So I set them up 3 weeks ago. I actually just recently moved into this unit, and I had to set up their tanks right away. So they were actually transported in those juice containers, and when they were in there, they were pretty stressed out. Uh, and that was expected because I transported them in a cold environment outside back to a warm environment here, so that probably stressed them out. And it's just such a small confined space in those water bottles and those juice bottles. But I've seen them in smaller containers, especially when they're being sold like at a store. And there is a controversy about what tank size you need for your betta. I would say 5 gallon minimum, even for a pair. So if you have a pair, they can fit in a 5 gallon just fine. I noticed that she started loving it when she got put in that 5 gallon, but when she was in that 2.5 above, she was very sluggish. So they're more active the bigger the tank you give them. And actually the juvenile in that tote, the 10 gallon tote, um, was swimming around constantly, and uh, was was really like showing how fast they swim. So if you give them enough space, they will become more active. That's what I find, which makes sense, I think. But going back to the what's recommended, I would say 5 gallon. If you can't, 2.5 just above that what I have there is enough as well. Even the point fives that some of them I put in there, because some of the breeder boxes up there are only point 0.5, and some of the bettas don't mind. So it really just depends on your fish, because they all have different personalities as well. Some of them will really love it. If you keep in mind their history and their origins, they come from a really tropical uh, place, right? And that tropical place is Indonesia, Thailand, and that's where the three main strains come from, which are the Splendens, um, the Smaragdinas, and the Umbellas. There are other strains, but these are the three that I am familiar with. But they're mostly all from Indonesia. I know the Splendid is more of just like a hybrid nowadays, where over time and generations of humans breeding the Splendens for a desired color or feature, it just became unnatural. So I think the Splendens used to be like a pure breed, but now it's sort of just been a hybrid because of all the interbreeding, all the you know human breeding, I guess. But what I'm saying is, um, they live in like puddles almost. So in the wet season in these tropical countries, typically tropical countries only have two seasons. You have the dry season and the wet season. And during the dry season, you're going to have puddles as small as a 0.5 gallon tank. Literally the smallest possible, or even just a 1 gallon. Now, when the rain season comes in, then obviously the rice fields where they're found, or in palm in the forests. I wanted to say like palm trees, but in the forests that they're found in as well, in the mud puddles. When the rain season comes in, those mud puddles fill up with more water, and all of these puddles start connecting, and then next thing you know, you have a small sort of like a river, and that's when all of them are connected to each other. So uh, yeah, they can survive in an environment as small as a point 0.5 or a 1 gallon tank. It's not advisable, but again, they are built to survive in those conditions as long as the temperature is still correct. Um, and what I've mentioned in the other video about keeping them in a 22-degree water is is actually is actually sufficient, because if you think about it, um, even in tropical countries like Indonesia, if we're talking about the morning of, right, you're gonna notice that it's still pretty cold in Indonesia in the morning when you wake up. It probably is around 22 degrees over there before it turns into 30 degree. So with that in mind, I mean, it's not really that far off that they can survive in this condition. And this is indoor condition too, so it's very controlled. It's not like they're out there in the Canadian winter, and that would definitely kill them because even the water will turn into ice. But in this indoor condition at 21, 22 degrees, it's still pretty good actually, because it's just like a cold day for them in Indonesia. Now, I'm not gonna crank it up to 26 and above, because that really excites them. So there was a comment about that, and I do realize that, and the range of the temperature can vary anywhere between, from what I just said, from let's say 22 degrees all the way up to 28 degrees or even 30 degrees. Um, I think that's up to the discretion of the fish keeper, but uh, the fish is very resilient. It can survive and it can thrive in those conditions. Um, and the warmer you give them water, the warmer the water you give them, and the more active they become actually. So if you put them in a colder tank, let's just say minor considered cold, because right now the temperature is 22.5, and I do have thermometers as well that we're gonna go check out in a bit just to see what the temperatures are. I only have two thermometers. I didn't put a thermometer in each tank because I find that two is enough. If one tank is the same temperature, then I just cross-reference that with the other thermometer just to match it, and then that would indicate that all of the tanks are the same minus the one at the bottom, because I have a heater in that one. So that should in theory give us the approximate temperature of each tank. So we'll go check that out in a bit. But going further into that, I'm very minimalist, or very like practical, conservative. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but uh, as you can tell, all my setups are no heater, no filter, just biofiltration, and that's probably the purest form. Um, referencing the nature environment that they live in. So one good YouTuber that I really liked, that stood out to me is, I think it's Father Fish is his name. I can't really quite remember what his YouTube channel was. Let me see if I can find his handle right now. But this guy has been keeping fish for quite a long time, and he actually brought up a good point that, you know, yeah, it actually is Father Fish. So Father Fish is a fish keeper that, you know, has 70 years of experience, and it's mostly with tropical fish. So he does talk about uh, the water parameters, everything you need to really know about fish, tropical fish. And one of the things that I took away from that was the temperature requirements and the water conditions. So, as you know, I'm going through a pH problem with my tanks, and I'm gonna do some more testing as well before I go out and buy some treatment products for the tank. Because right now I'm limited to just the safe powdered dechlorinator from Seachem. I might buy some other stuff too, like pH down for sure, and a different kind of water conditioner. Because technically, I don't really have a proper water conditioner, but we're gonna go and test and see if I actually need that. And he even said that even water parameters can be, these parameters that the hobby has has been talking about, like keep the pH between 6.5 to 7.5. These are just guidelines actually, and it's good to know, and it's good to keep your water parameters within these guidelines, but um, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, my waters are not perfect. In fact, I've had this same setup when I had the Smaragdinas breeding. So I had the Smaragdinas breed successfully, actually. So I actually successfully bred a wild type in captivity, and the proof of that is in the above tanks, because I have the juveniles growing out right now. So I kind of just, I'm one of those hobbyists that I eyeball it because I've been in the hobby for so long that I kind of just know instinctually um, what I need to do and what I need to adjust just by looking at how the system is doing. And I've talked about this in the other video. As long as you pay attention to your system, you're gonna notice what needs to be changed. And there's several factors to consider too, right? Like, bettas are really resilient, as I mentioned in the other video, and they can breathe above surface if they need to. Now, most fish will absorb oxygen through their skin, through the water, so that's why it's really good to have a good quality water. But with the betta, they actually have the labyrinth organ, which allows them to breathe above surface. So that kind of gives them a secondary tool to filter out and breathe properly, I guess. Breathe oxygen, absorb oxygen through their labyrinth lungs. So there's that, which makes them, more ideal to serve in a situation where the water quality is really bad. It really allows them to thrive until the water quality is fixed. So that's one, right? And I've also mentioned the how clear the water is. So if your water looks like it's clear enough to drink, then that means the plants are doing their job absorbing ammonia and keeping the system in place, and the system is not collapsing at that point. But when you start to see like the water turning milky and then you know that's a sign that the system is breaking down. So go ahead and do a water change to start. And when it comes to correcting, when it comes to corrective measures, then you start with the most basic, which is just do a simple water change. But when you're considering water change, since I moved here, I had to consider the new water from the tap, and I'm from the same city. I moved to a different side of the city, so I don't think the water is sourced differently from one place to another. But just in case, I test out the water, see what the water is before, uh, uh, before I put them in the aquarium or treat them, and go from there. So that's another way to find out the the default parameters of the water as they come out of the tap. So that's one way to definitely check that out, is by testing them. Um, and so I think I think that's it. Like, yeah, over time, um, you're can I don't know, some hobbyists are like this. I know my brother was not like me. He had a master kit that you could buy as well, which includes all of the testing um, that you could possibly do to a water quality, to see what the chemistry is with the water. So I was never a big believer on a testing kit or testing the water. I know that sounds kind of dumb because there's no way for me to really tell if I don't test it. But I just eyeball it, and that has worked for me for over a decade. So if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And so it shows that the fish are resilient, and they can survive even in local tap water, which is full of minerals and chlorine, right? So um, yeah, just at your discretion. We can even get into RO water. I know that some people really love RO water. You can get RO water from a fish store. I know a fish store that sells it by the gallon. RO stands for reverse osmosis water, and that one is really good to have as well if you want, clean water for your fish. And for me, I don't really need that. I've never used it. Not saying it's a bad product, but I just never had the need to use it. So um, we might not even get to the feeding part. I mean, this is taking so long, so I might just break that down into part two. But I just wanted to talk about that as I'm noticing it. Um, and right now the baseboard heaters are kicking in, so it's around 23 degrees already. So that was actually really fast how warm it got already. So that's a good sign. But we will probably resume for a second video to do the feeding and all the maintenance work here. So I'll probably catch you in the next video then.